Brad Fulton. He is a PhD candidate in the Department of Sociology at Duke University. He's an organizational scholar. His work has been published in the American Sociological Review, and he's a co-authored book at the University of Chicago Press. His work is also grounded in over 10 years of professional experience in the nonprofit sector. The title of his talk is Bridging and Bonding: How Social Diversity Influences Organizational Performance. So please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to present my research on organizational diversity. Prior to becoming a sociologist, I spent several years working as a professional in the nonprofit sector. And of the organizations I worked for, a perennial issue we faced was related to becoming a more socially diverse organization. This aspiration raised many challenging questions for us. The first was, how do we become more socially diverse? And then once we become diverse, how can we successfully navigate our differences? And finally, and perhaps most importantly, how can we leverage our differences to advance the goals of our organization? These questions have become the driving force behind much of my research. The paper I'm presenting today focuses on leveraging diversity. Many organizations aspire to become more diverse, yet it remains an open question as to whether and how diversity will actually improve an organization's performance. My research question is, how can an organization leverage social diversity to improve its performance? Now, a tremendous amount of research has been dedicated to this topic, and when I surveyed the reviews of studies that examined the relationship between organizational diversity and performance, most of them emphasized the mixed findings. In fact, a crude summary of these reviews is that 1/3 of the studies find that diversity improves performance, 1/3 find that diversity hinders performance, and the remaining third find no significant relationship. While most of these studies focus exclusively on the social composition of an organization, my research advances this field of inquiry by also analyzing the social interactions of an organization's members. What I want to measure is the extent to which an organization engages social differences. But if I ask the question, does your organization value diversity? We all know what their answer will be. So instead, I ask questions for which the socially desirable answer is not obvious. For example, one question is, over the last year, how often did your team explicitly discuss racial differences in its planning meetings? The response options are on a 5-point scale that range from never to always. And I ask an identical question for gender, class, and religion. What I find interesting is that there are some racially diverse organizations that almost never talk about racial differences. It's part of their organizational culture to not focus on racial differences. Instead, employees are encouraged to adopt a colorblind posture. Another question I ask is, over the last year, to what extent have racial differences prolonged your planning meetings? And I ask an identical question for gender, class, and religion. The benefit of asking this type of question is that respondents don't sit there and think, what is the right answer to this question? Instead, they will think back over their last few planning meetings and consider, for example, whether gender differences were discussed in such a deeply engaging way that it actually ate up time on their agenda and prolonged their meeting. The main advantage of measuring both an organization's social composition and its social interactions is that it allows me to assess the independent effects of social bridging and bonding, as well as the interactions between them. As I embarked on this project, I realized that I would need to collect my own data to conduct the type of study I wanted to do. In terms of the data I collected, I had a 94% response rate, and I gathered data on 4,145 organizations. This project makes some important contributions, and I'll highlight 3 of them. And in terms of practical contributions, my study finds that organizations can improve their performance by becoming more diverse. But just being diverse is not always enough. In order to realize the full benefits of diversity, team members need to engage their social differences. Thank you.